Welcome to the Growth Mindset Podcast with me, Sam Webster Harris. I'm ready for a big podcast today. We are learning all about the connection between our subconscious mind and our emotions. Now, the human brain is a magical thing that is currently recognized as one of the most complex structures in the known universe. And our awareness of our conscious thoughts is just the surface of what's actually going on in our brain. It takes you 2 years to learn how to walk and run, and that's a lot of processing power going on. But every day, you walk around and you don't even think about it consciously because your brain is processing all of this information, which is a gigantic amount of information, in the subconscious, because your conscious mind doesn't need to think about these things. And why am I telling you that? Well, it makes the point that the brain is mostly doing things that you aren't aware of in the slightest. So if you want to be successful, if you want to make the most of your potential, you probably need to get the subconscious mind to work in the direction that your conscious mind wants it to go in. Now, there are a lot of ways of looking into this and how our mindsets and emotions control our subconscious. And I'm a big advocate of the Buddhist teachings and the practice of Vipassana meditation, which helps you understand your emotions and how any of those emotions will serve you before letting them pass into your subconscious. But my guest today has a very different approach, and I was really fascinated to learn about it. I think this topic is something that we all wrestle with, even if we don't realize we're wrestling with it. So anything that can add to our mental models and our approaches to improve our subconscious thinking is something that excites me, and I'm hoping excites you too.
Just to let you know, this episode is a repeat from 2 years ago, but I thought it would be fun to bring it back. For anybody who listens intently to the podcast and follows what I'm up to, this is just a snapshot from history.
So my guest is Jeff Bauhner, the author of The Sultan's 7 Secrets, which digs into the topics of your subconscious mind and how your emotions control your subconscious. He really talks about the power of stories and has a fresh way of looking at this for me, and his own tale of how he came about improving his behaviors and his subconscious thinking to unlock the success he's had was a really useful tale of how to put his ideas into actions and overpower negative ideologies that you might have. The whole thing's really cool, so I think you're going to like it. However, I will warn you that at some points I thought that Jeff might be bonkers, but his story really comes together in the end, and I have worked very hard on the podcast to establish credibility. I'm very against any kind of magical just believe something and the whole world will give you everything you dream about, because there's a big difference between dreaming and doing. And in a few moments, Jeff does allude to some magical concepts, and I was a bit worried that he might not make any sense. But the actual theory of what he talks about in his take-homes were rooted in principles of psychology that I do believe in, and it's just a different way of getting there. And I do celebrate diversity of ideas and anything that you can add to your toolbox to help the ways that you think. And on that note, let's crack into the episode. We will start with learning some of the issues that Jeff had in his personal life and deep-rooted mindsets, sabotaging his success due to his ideas about work and money. It's super relatable, and I think it's a really good way to start this episode to understand how we can take control of our subconscious mind and our lives.
So 2 of the main driving subconscious beliefs that I had were that the only honorable way to make money was to work hard for it physically. And that came from that whole farm upbringing. We used to brag about how hard we worked all the time, and we would compare how many bales of hay we touched in the summer, how many farmers that we helped bring their hay in. And we looked down upon rich people, people who made their money any other way. We really thought we were better than people who didn't work hard for their money. At 33, here I am. I'm a concrete contractor working hard for my money, but I'm not happy. I'm going backwards financially. I'm struggling. I have no free time. My family is starting to fall apart. My wife's sick of me, not doing anything with the family, not helping with the kids, just working all the time. I was also getting physically worn out. So I knew something had to change, but, I had this subconscious belief that that's who I am. It's what I do. The thought of changing was just outside of my ability to even comprehend. I just couldn't see how anything could change.
Very much the fixed mindset belief, and no one really thinks they have a fixed mindset. So I was going to ask you, what were the reasons that you were having troubles?
Anyone who's been in the construction trades will tell you that you can make plenty of money. I was making good money, and as long as nothing went wrong, I was fine. But things did go wrong. And pretty soon, if you stay in it long enough, you can find yourself in a situation where you're trying to complete a job today to get paid so that you can cover the bills on 2 jobs back or even 3 jobs back. And I was trapped that way. I had got into some debt. So now I was always hustling to get paid so I could make a payment on my concrete bill or my steel bill or lumber bill and 3 jobs back. So I couldn't even afford to quit and gone on to do something else. I was trapped.
I'm really glad I asked. It's really interesting how lots of things logically are really good financial decisions to make if everything goes to plan, but how you can kind of get stuck in things because it's really overwhelming for people. And
very easily.
Well, I'm definitely interested to sort of see where this goes and how you got out of this, but the second unconscious belief that you had, tell me more.
Well, you can't be righteous and rich at the same time. And again, that just went back to my upbringing. I grew up in a very religious community of hardworking people. And I certainly believed on a very deep subconscious level that rich people got their money in some underhanded way or they exploited others to get it. So now here I am trapped in 2 ways. One, in my own subconscious mind, that it's not even right to be wealthy or rich, and yet I desperately wanted to be wealthy and rich. And then I was trapped physically because I had painted myself into a corner. So I had to work hard every day to get that next paycheck just to keep things going and not lose my home and my family. I'm sure a lot of people in your audience can relate to that feeling.
Some very interesting mindsets that I think a lot of people can relate to. And I think there are also sort of things that you just do to tell yourself that you're in the right place. And it's just like the mentality that people have when they're in a group is like, okay, I'm in this group, therefore it must be the best group.
Oh, yeah. From the day you get here, you're told who you are, what group you belong to, how we act and how we think in this group, what we like, what we don't like. And that training goes on to present. And so if you want to break out of your training or your, let's call it programming, something drastic has to happen. And that's what happened to me at the age of 33.
So the story's set up. I'm excited. One thing we'll say is that it is also just like natural as a human to want to conform to a group because we're evolved to like be in groups. And if you're not in the tribe, you're more likely to die and stuff, which is obviously not true today anymore, but you just want to like agree with people even if it doesn't make sense, even when you logically know it's not true, but you're just like, okay, well, I'll just do what other people are doing.
That's actually very mature thinking on your part. You're recognizing something there that's real.
Thank you very much. So anyway, I'm 32, you were 32, turning 33, and bam, what happened?
I took on a job for a very wealthy couple. They were redoing this beautiful old home. It was a good job for me. I was making plenty of money. And I was enamored with the 2 people that owned the home. They were older, silver-haired people. I thought of them as ancient, but they might have actually been younger than I am now.
Classic.
They weren't just wealthy. They were elegant people. They were kind. They were warm. They talked to us. And I remember telling this lady as she was talking to me, you have everything I want in life, but I have no idea how to get there. And this conversation started out very positive, but it devolved quickly into me complaining, telling her about how hard I was working and how unfair it was that I was working harder than anyone I knew, had more debt, and just not doing as well as a lot of friends that I had. right in the middle of that complaining, she turned around and walked away. And it was quite an embarrassing moment for me because I knew better than to, kind of bitch in front of strangers, especially this is somebody I wanted to impress. But she came back a few minutes later with a manuscript. Now, this manuscript, I wasn't even going to read. I just thought she's given me a paper on positive thinking or who knows what, but I had read those kind of books before. I didn't want anything to do with them. I didn't have time. I knew I wasn't going to read her paper. But that night I read the first page and then I stayed up all night reading the rest of it and taking notes. This manuscript told the story of the wealthiest man who has ever lived, a real man in history, named Sultan Musa of Mali. This story is unbelievable, but it's true. He was a real man, a real leader in the 1300s in West Africa. And to put it in perspective, he was wealthier than Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk combined. And the way they estimate it, it's because he had lots of gold and salt and owned mines. And so they can take today's value. And lots of people have never even heard about this guy.
There's some cool stories because he traveled across Africa to Egypt and he just gave away so much gold that he completely devalued the price of gold for 10 years and caused chaos in the markets.
He collapsed the Egyptian economy for several years because he gave away so much gold to the peasants. Yeah, it's a crazy story. Here's what a lot of people don't know. He started out an absolute pauper. His father died when he was young and threw himself and his mother into unbelievable poverty. His mother couldn't feed him. He had to go out and steal food every day just to survive. But something happened to him at the age of 12 that changed everything and set him on this course of becoming the wealthiest man ever. And that was a near-death experience. He fell in with an older thief, and this thief tried to murder him by sealing him in a cave and leaving him to die. It's an unbelievable story. He found a way out of the cave, but not before his spirit body actually came out of his physical body. So he died. And he met a man made of light and love who taught him all kinds of unbelievable things about how life works, how creation works, how people work, what makes you, you, and how someone can change who they are or the role they're playing, let's say. Well, he survives, he has this information, and he uses these 7 basic principles to just have an unbelievable life. He was successful in every aspect, not just money. His love life, people loved him. He lifted the entire Mali kingdom out of intense poverty, and he did it by teaching these 7 principles. And that's what's in my book, The Sultan's 7 Secrets.
Okay, so, well, now I want to know the 7 secrets to becoming infinitely wealthy.
Now imagine me, Sam. I'm this concrete contractor, not happy with my life, and I come across this formula. He put it all down on paper. He wrote extensively about what the man made of light taught him. Now, he wrote 2 documents. One is a fairy tale in which he embedded these secrets, and he did that so that he could talk about them and still preserve his life, because you can get in a lot of trouble if you start talking crazy. And he knew that. But then he wrote a second parchment that was a detailed description of everything he was taught, including this thing I'm going to tell you about called the language of the gods. And here I am reading this, and it says, if you speak this language, the world obeys your commands. It just does. You can take that to the bank. So yeah, I'm reading this thinking, okay, I'm going to figure out how to speak this language, and then I'm going to speak it. Well, it has nothing to do with the words that come out of your mouth. Nothing at all. And it really has little to do with the thoughts you think even. And I'll tell you what it is in just a minute, and it'll make really perfect sense. In fact, the second I read it, I knew it was true. I knew it would work if I did it, but I was afraid to do it. because I knew I'd be devastated if it didn't work. And yet I knew it would work if I did it. I just knew it. Do you have any questions up to this point?
Well, yes. So many questions, I'm not even sure where to start. Language of the gods, very confused, but interested to hear what you mean then if it isn't words, because I was going to say you can't just speak random words and things will work, because I'm a bit of a scientist on these things. But I definitely think there's some rules for life, probably 7 of them, that could make you highly wealthy. So I am half very skeptical, half very intrigued. So looking forward to what happens. It seems to be working for you.
You're exactly where I was reading this. I was like, can this even be real? Can it be that simple? But what if it doesn't work? I'll be so disappointed.
Well, if it's free to try, I don't mind embarrassing myself with trying stuff.
You have nothing to lose by trying this. There's no downside to it, I promise. And just to give you an idea of what happened, I went from being like a $60,000 a year concrete guy to making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in a new business that just came to me from out there somewhere. It just fell into my lap. It was right down my alley. I was perfect for it. So now I'll get into how you do it.
I know what you're thinking. What are you talking about, Jeff, you big weirdo? Why haven't you told us already? Why so much suspense? Language of the gods? Who are you? Well, don't worry.
I was thinking that too. And to be honest, at this point in the conversation, I was pretty convinced that Jeff was actually a banana and that I would never air his interview. And I was just still talking to him to be polite. But my suspicions were incorrect. Jeff is actually a legend. He's maybe a little American with some of his over-enthusiasm. This language of the gods concept, which, at least from my perspective, is a silly name, is actually a really cool concept based in real psychology that I am happy to talk about on the show, which is why I have released the episode, and you will hear the rest of what he's talking about. So yeah, I know the story has been a bit mystical and strange so far, but it does start to get more sensible. And as I said earlier, I really like coming at things from different perspectives, and I think he provides some really valuable mental models, all coming up after the break.
I told you he wrote 2 parchments. One is a fairy tale, a story, but it's so compelling that centuries later, almost everybody on Earth is familiar with it. This is the tale of Aladdin and the magic lamp. There are 4 main elements. And by the way, Antoine Galland was absolutely honest about it. He did not write this story. He got 2 parchments from a Syrian fisherman written by Sultan Musa of Mali. He only published the fairy tale because he was terrified of that second parchment. It could ruin his career and maybe even cost him his life. But he personally went on to experience unbelievable wealth and fame and success in life. But he never published that second document. Musa referred to this second mind, basically, as the veiled mind. But we are familiar with the concept of a subconscious mind. And we all know that your subconscious mind is running the show. That's where all your memories are stored. It's where all of your subconscious beliefs are about who you are, how you fit in the world. It causes you to act a certain way and be a certain type of person. Basically, play a very specific role. But that's all you're doing. You're just playing a role, and you can change it anytime by communicating with the genie in a very specific language. And that's where the magic lamp comes in. Now, in the fairy tale, the magic lamp is the thing that changes everything, right? For Aladdin. He finds this magic lamp. In real life, the magic lamp represents knowledge of how you operate, that you have a conscious mind, that you have a subconscious mind, that the subconscious mind is all-powerful. Whatever it believes to be true about you, that is the way it's going to be. And you really can't stop it until you change those subconscious beliefs. So back to the magic lamp. What is that? It's the language that is always taking place between your conscious and your subconscious mind. So I'm going to ask you a question in a minute. But let's go back to this concept of your life. It's going to be congruent with whatever subconscious beliefs you have or what your subconscious mind believes about you. That's how it's going to be. Here's the question. Who told your subconscious mind what to believe about you?
Usually your subconscious or other people and how you're brought up rather than yourself. But that's how you can learn to change.
But you told it in this language that it hears and obeys every single time. And I said it's not words, it's feelings. Feelings is the language of the gods. Your subconscious mind believes all of your feelings, every one of them. It never doubts them. It doesn't listen to what's coming out of your mouth. It knows what you're saying. It knows what you're thinking, but it is not programmed by that. That's why affirmations don't work when you do them like, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich. Well, your subconscious mind isn't buying that. It knows you're saying that because you're poor and you wish you were rich. When you learn that feelings is the language your subconscious mind believes, and by the way, this is how all of your subconscious beliefs have been set. Some event happened that was accompanied by really strong emotion, and that could be good emotion or bad emotion. But that set a belief in you. For example, if you were a little boy and you got up to perform and it went really well and the crowd clapped and that felt good to you, that may have set a subconscious belief that you're a performer. And that's, what you should be doing. If it went bad, the exact opposite happened. If somebody snickered and you froze up and it was a disaster, then that strong emotion attached to that event set a subconscious belief that you're no good at that. You should stay away from public speaking or singing or performing at any cost. Well, this is how your entire personality has been patched together over the years. Events took place, they were attached to emotion, and that set your personality. And it's always changing. Just because you didn't believe you could perform at the age of 8 doesn't mean that over time you don't have new experiences and new emotions. And now maybe you can get up in front of a crowd and talk, but maybe you can't. It all depends on those subconscious beliefs. But here's the thing. Once you understand how subconscious beliefs are formed, and you know how to do it, as soon as you create a new subconscious belief about any aspect of your life, that's the way it's going to be. And you can't stop it unless you change that subconscious belief again. You're in a position to seize control of your life. Here's the thing I want to leave with you and leave with your audience. You can learn to speak the feelings to your subconscious mind that match the life you want, regardless and in fact in defiance of what's going on in your quote-unquote reality. Now, you can't do that by focusing on reality, right? Like staring at your bank balance if it's low and the pile of bills next to it. That's going to make you feel bad about finances. Exactly what you don't want to do. If you're going to change how you feel about any aspect of your life that you want to change, you use your superpower. And this is your ability to imagine and pretend. This is so powerful. This can put you anywhere you want to be. And you were a pro at it when you were a little kid. You could get into a make-believe world and stay there for hours. And you did it because it was fun. It felt good. You were creating feelings that you liked. And nothing has changed except that you've been taught to quit doing that. You've actually been scolded and even punished for pretending, living in a make-believe world too much. That's where your power is. And let me give you a quick example. Let's say that in reality, your finances aren't great. You're really worried. You only have couple of grand in the bank and you got twice that in bills coming due. So you're nervous and you're like, wow, I just can't seem to figure this out. And no matter what I do, I always end up kind of back here where I've got less money than I have bills. And what do I do about it? Let's say that just for a moment, you asked yourself this magic question. What would it feel like to have, say, 100 grand cash under my mattress? As you imagine with some intensity, having 100 grand cash, you're going to experience some of the emotion that's attached to that experience. Now, well, this is just an imaginary scenario. It's not real, right? But what about the feelings it generates? Are those real?
Definitely.
Absolutely, they are.
Calm and freedom potential.
Absolutely, they're real. And your subconscious mind is listening to them and believing them. If you do enough of that, you imagine having what it is you want and identify and experience the feelings that imaginary scenario generates, you're going to start telling your subconscious mind what kind of a life to go create for you. And maybe it's never heard these feelings before, or at least not in 10 years. You've never flooded it with feelings of having cash under your mattress, a lot of it, maybe go beyond 100,000, 800,000, 3 million cash. It can create the same feelings if you imagine having 3 or 4 million in the bank. But you haven't done that. You haven't flooded your subconscious mind with those positive feelings about money, and now you are. But I promise you, this is just how it works. If you do enough of it consistently and with some intensity, things will happen in your physical realm that will begin to match the feelings that you're generating with your ability to pretend, your imagination. But it's deeper than that, because when you create these feelings on a consistent basis, they're motivating. You speak to your subconscious mind in the language of feelings, and it believes them. And then it speaks back to you in the language of feelings based on its beliefs, and you act on your feelings. So when you just imagine that you have all these things that make you really excited, your subconscious mind is beginning to believe that that's how your life is supposed to be, or that more of that is supposed to be integrated into your life. And B, it's now going to start hitting you with what I call nudges. It's going to speak back to you. Hey, it feels good to imagine that you're strong and fit and healthy and ripped at any age, and you flood your subconscious mind with those feelings. It's going to start suggesting, hey, let's go to the gym today. Hey, let's put aside the donuts and eat a steak or, 4 or 5 eggs. Let's do this. It will lead you step by step to do the things in your quote unquote real world, your physical realm, that match what you're doing in your spirit realm, in your imagination, the way you've chosen to see the world, to see yourself, to see your role, and to see how you fit into the world. You can do this with finances, your relationship, your health, your strength, your energy, your occupation and career, which is often different from your finances. Every good thing, every $1 million idea, every perfect business for you, every perfect sweetheart for you is already out there. And your subconscious mind knows about them, but is not going to bring them to you until you tune in, if you will, to that thing. And the way you do it is in the language of feelings. If you feel like, hey, I'm not good with women, I just have a hard time, I've never been in a relationship for very long, they don't seem to like me, or they do initially and then very quickly turn on me. And if you feel that way on a core level, that's how it's going to be. And the only way to change it is to flood your subconscious mind with feelings of doing well with women, having long-term beautiful relationships. And since you can't look to reality for that, you've got to look to your superpower. Do it in your imagination, but do it enough that you've buried, and I mean just flooded your subconscious mind with feelings that match the life you want. And you'll realize that if you do this, it's nearly impossible to have your life stay the same. It just can't. When your subconscious mind is being flooded with very positive, motivating, compelling feelings, it gets on board. It likes that. And it will start orchestrating circumstances and situations in your real life to bring more things into your life that match the feelings you're telling it to believe. And all I say is try it. You got nothing to lose.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's like most of the reasons that you might then fail is that actually you just haven't got good enough at controlling your feelings, because no one really tells you to piss off if you just go up and talk to them with confidence and you say nice things and you have a fun conversation. If you do that a few times, one of them will probably fancy you and you'll end up with a good relationship. But if you turn up and you think, oh, maybe we're going to be weird or creepy or something, you're probably going to turn up and be a bit weird or creepy. And
think about how often, Sam, you've thought, oh my gosh, I'm nervous about talking to this girl. And in the past, I've said stupid things. Well, when you're in that frame of mind, 100% of the time you say something stupid. And it goes the way you thought it was going to go. But the opposite is true too. You just imagine that you walk in a room and you look so good and you look so happy and you are so happy and you got so much going on that she comes to you. She's attracted to you. She wants to know, hey, what are you doing? What are you up to? Who are you? And now you're not trying to impress her. You're just smiling and listening to her talk. And maybe you're even trying to keep a little information back, but you imagine how smoothly that conversation could go because she's pushing it. She's driving it. Now, guess what? That's exactly some version of that is going to happen in your future if you do enough of it. It's just a fact. And you can prove it to yourself. That's what's fun about this. You can do little things and you'll see what I call coincidences, and I always put them in air marks. Little things are going to happen where you're like, wait a minute, that was not happening a month ago. It is happening now, and it matches exactly the feelings that I've been generating with these imaginary scenarios. And then your confidence grows and you just do more and more and more of it.
I'm fully on board with working out your feelings, and I try to use fear now as a bit of a sign that it's probably something that is worth doing. And so I could kind of get a bit excited if I'm scared to do something. Like, this is going to be a really good thing to go and do, most likely, unless it's something where you're probably just going to get killed. But it is something I kind of had realized already, was that like feelings are kind of the useless basic reaction that isn't always correct, and that you should work out what you should actually think you should feel.
Yes.
And yeah, that was super useful and definitely changed my life quite a lot. And I really like the way that you've spoken about that. You definitely give me like a different way of thinking about it, which is just sort of making what's already in my head even more powerful. So I'm actually super happy to have heard the way you've explained it all. That's cool. And yeah, like a few months ago, I literally had that with a girl in a queue to a plane. Like, I had the funniest weekend, like running around a tech conference in a dress, interviewing people. And I just had some of the best conversations of my life, which I'd never worn a dress before in public. And I was just like, you know what? I don't care. I'm scared about this. So I'm going to do it anyway. And then so many people were like, what the hell are you doing? You're amazing. I love you. And I just like had the best like feedback of how cool I was for doing something that I was just a bit scared about. And like, I was just having a bit of like afterglow the next day as I was queuing for this plane. And she literally had seen me, ended up like just standing next to me. And then I saw her, I was like, this is the hottest woman I've ever seen in my life. Oh God. I definitely was just generally very confident at that point. And so yeah, I started talking to her and then like just didn't stop talking. We like changed seats so we could like sit together on the plane. And then now she's my girlfriend and I'm pretty happy about my life.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Confidence, man. That's a thing.
Sam, 2 years ago, I was going to retire on my farm in Belize, and I got the strongest feeling that I couldn't just go off into the sunset. That's why I wrote the book. I've got all 7 principles in the book, including the language of the gods, and I have it almost free because We charge a couple bucks to download the book just to keep that site running and standing on its own, so I'm not losing too much money giving the book away. But I want everyone to have the book.
Before I accepted you, I was almost like, is this guy selling something? But I looked at it, I was like, okay, he's not. He legitimately just wants to share his ideas. I was just genuinely intrigued at what the hell you were talking about with Language of the Gods, which luckily does make complete sense. And I would prefer to call it just the language of feelings and how to talk to yourself.
Just conveying what Sultan Musa of Mali called it.
Always like ways to teach myself something that I know I should do but struggle with. As I said, I've been doing this in some forms, but from a different piece of logic, if you know what I mean. So it's just nice to have like a second attack angle on like your feelings, which don't do what you want to do that reliably, even as you're getting better at it. Just wondering if I should ask you anything else. So what was the business that you then went on to do that was earning like almost too much money after you had been in construction for so long?
I had been in the vending business, but I had put out little vending machines in Southern California. I never wanted to go back to concrete, and I never wanted to go back to vending. The business that fell into my lap turned out to be associated with vending, but it wasn't placing the machines. It was a wholesale vending business where we sold the machines, we sold the candy, we sold all the stuff that people need to get into that business. That just fell into my lap. The story is actually in the book, so I'll just let people read it there rather than try to convey that story. But I've had several businesses since, and they've all come to me by flooding my subconscious mind with feelings that match the type of business that I want. And you will be shocked at the weird, strange, almost unbelievable coincidences that pop up when you do that. And what you realize is that you don't have to figure everything out. Take control of your feelings. Take control of your life. It's really that simple.
It's a lovely note to end on. So thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, and hope you have a lovely day.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's been great, and I can't wait to see what you do with your life going forward. I'm really proud of what you're doing now with this podcast. I know you're helping a lot of people.
Thank you so much for listening.
Go you!
Your consistency to reach the end of an episode is legendary.
My hero!
If you have any ideas or feedback for the show, I'm always interested to hear from you.
You're the best!
Studies show we need time for information to sink in, so I'm going to give you a 5-second pause, silence, to reflect on one idea from the show before you jump back into your busy life. Ready and go.